The one thing I wanted to ask you, Sean, every year, obviously, coaching is so important in the NFL, maybe more than any other sport. But in this season, Sean, do you believe that coaching is going to be a level higher in importance and scheming and game planning because of all the lack of time on task you've had? Do you think it jumps up a notch this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything does, really. When you look at just what we have to do to get ourselves in the building every day, that's just the start of it. And you guys will see some of that today firsthand now. It really starts, to me, it's a leadership, challenge. And I think it's also a team challenge and an organizational challenge. And so it's not just coaching, it's, to me, leadership and the whole team. We've got to all, collectively raise our game on the field, and in this case, for sure, off the field. So, I mean, for example, every head coach, I'm sure Sal spends a lot of time planning. This year, I can tell you, for me at least, even more, which I didn't know was possible. The balance of that is important, though, that I still find time for myself to be around the guys. But I can tell you a lot of my day is taken up by planning, just the next day, or as of this morning, trying to plan how we're going to travel this year. For example, some hotels we stay in may have space for us to socially distance from one another, and others may not. So, I mean, just to give you an example of some of the questions and challenges that I have to figure out, that we have to figure out as a team. What used to be, hey, go to training camp, we have all that already tucked away, ready to go. This year is not like that.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Yep.
Hey, Sean, John Scott, about 50 yards away from you.
Beautiful blue skies, John. I love the backdrop, man.
Yeah. Hey, I'm ready to be out here. I'm knocking on the door, literally. Just wanted to see if you have a sense of your players knowing the pads are coming on today and where their mindset and excitement is.
Yeah, it's return to real football. When you grow up around this game, whether you're coaching or playing or another an important staff member, the first day of pads is always kind of monumental, if you will. Like, hey, here we go, and there's always a little bit of anxiety around that, even for coaches. I tried to share with the guys last night that we're not going to go live today, but we will, what we call thud up in terms of our tempo, just to try and take some of the edge off of the mental edge off of their night so they could get some good rest. Because I think from the time you're, yay big to your time you're a professional athlete, that feeling doesn't go away, the night before the first day of full pads.
And just a quick follow, how different is it considering everything that you haven't been able to do and how this is truly, really getting back to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the space. I watched that space shuttle launch this off season. Pretty cool experience to watch. And you got to believe it, as those astronauts are walking, kind of their way down into that capsule, that with each step they're starting to think to themselves, hey, this is real, and we're about to go. And so in a similar way, that's always the start of the season for me, and in particular in this case, with how long we've been out and the short run up to our launch here. So we still have weeks ahead, with a lot of work to be done, but I think we're all starting to get our minds wrapped around the fact that we're on green. We're sitting on green right now.
Thanks. See you soon.
Sounds good.
Hey, Sean, Mike Catalana. You spent a lot of time, it seemed, from the time you came in, developing the way you wanted the locker room culture to be, the way the room was set up, all those things. It's so different now. Do you allow your players some leeway in maybe talking to you about keeping that type of atmosphere? Because we're not going to be in the locker room now. We've seen it to a small extent, but in a bigger case of saying how they're going to interact with each other and still follow all the protocols and make it that type of room that you've had.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we've taken that into consideration. Really, we started about 2 or 3 months ago with our meetings on that, as well as many other things around our building with protocol. That's an important room, as you've heard me talk about. You mentioned earlier, because it's really the players' sanctuary where they can have those one-off conversations where you get to know your teammates. Coaches aren't always in there, and I'm sure that's good for the players. They can get away a little bit in that regard. And a lot of the team is built in there. And so with the way things are this year and trying to stay as safe as possible, we've tried to give them other options. You'll see we added a rather large tent outside at the back of the end zone of Field 1. And obviously a big investment from Terry and Kim, but well thought out. Right. And so that now has become their cafeteria, their place where we want them to hang out, as opposed to hanging out or spending as much time in the locker room. So they can hang out there, watch some TV, to hopefully bring the team together in a healthy way.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, Sal Capaccio out here, WGR. I'm in the parking lot, and I'm keeping my distance from John Scott, who's over there, just so you know. My question for you is, about intrinsic motivation for players, and also outward motivation. And in a situation like this, basically, they know that they don't have fans in the stands, things like that. They're professionals, but do you have to keep the juices flowing somehow? Do you have to figure out a way to keep the motivation and keep the eye on the prize, so to speak, knowing that there's probably a little bit of that intrinsic stuff lost with some people.
When you say why would it be lost? So I'm just trying to track with you here.
I mean, I know they're professional athletes and everything, but people think about I'm going to play a game. There's no fans in the stands, things like that. There's still a season to be played. All those kinds of things. Everything is different. It's not like they're used to playing football since they were little, and especially going to big colleges and in the pros and things like that. You still come to work every day, but is there anything you have to do different to make sure you keep that in mind all the time?
Yeah, I mean, from a leadership standpoint, as a head coach, I'm always keeping that in mind, and I know our staff is doing a really good job at that as well. There's obviously, look, we're all human. We all need some form of motivation every day. What's driving us? What's behind our passion daily? And so we keep that in mind. All the while, though, I was thinking about this last night. When you're, because there is going to be reduced amount of fans in stadiums. Fans are great, and in particular our fans. It's really, it's once you lock in, though, once the ball is kicked off, you're locked in. And as a professional and guys that perform at a high level, you've got to, be focused on what's right in front of you. And the fans certainly make it special and unique to play here. And when we go on the road, and hearing them gives us that little extra, if you will, that 12th man, and we rely on that. Having said that, as professionals, we've got a job to do, and we've got to focus and be ready to be locked in and get our minds wrapped around the fact that there's going to be obviously a reduction in fans.
Thank you, Sean.
Yep.
Hey, Sean, Josh Reed here. Good to see you. Glad to be here. You've talked about a little bit in the past about kind of fighting the urge to push a little too hard and finding that middle ground. I guess now that the pads are finally going on, how challenging is it going to be to make sure that you kind of quote unquote get caught up while fighting that urge to push a little too much?
Yeah, that's where I rely on my staff. I try and stay in touch with those guys and our sports science department in particular, because we don't want to be too passive in our approach, but also we don't want to keep pounding the same nail into the ground, and then eventually that player, has a soft tissue injury, which some are going to happen anyway. But it's a delicate balance every year, in particular this year, because it's so unique, without having the spring, without having just the knowledge of some of these guys, in the springtime, where we get to know them and we get a better feel for our team. So it's again, it's all hands on deck, and we've got to make sure we over communicate on things and try to do the best thing we can for our football team. And what we do for our team may be different than, the team down the road. It's, I will say one of our goals, like it is every year, is we've got to come out of training camp a tough football team on both sides of the ball, including special teams, though.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Coach, Chris Brown here. I know at the outset, when everybody reported back across the league, there was some talk of some teams considering quarantining one player from a position group, quarterback obviously being the most prominent of the positions. First, at the outset, had you given thought to that? And second, has your perspective changed, now that you've seen the way things operate here on a daily basis?
As far as the quarantining of certain position players, I think that's something that we should consider. It'll be interesting to see how, the different teams handle that through the league. And then as far as the protocol, again, I'm just reminded now of how adjustable we are as human beings, because what used to be unique has now become normal in terms of the layers that we have to undertake, the measures that the building is taking every day. And when you drive in, you get tested. Before that, you were getting the thermometer testing. Then it was the COVID test, and now we have a scanner in the lobby that scans our temperatures, and so to me it's amazing how quickly we've adapted and adjusted. Credit to all the staff as well, but also I think it's a credit to the resiliency of our organization.
So, Coach, just to be clear, that might be something you consider once the team's traveling, not now.
In terms of?
Like pulling one quarterback out of the group, for example, and isolating them from the other quarterback kind of thing.
Yeah, well, we again, just how we're operating daily here, Chris, is you saw when we went back a few weeks ago where we had a couple positives, what we did. Right now, in terms of quarantining a player or two intentionally, we're not going to do that right now. It has been discussed, I can tell you that. And so, as we move forward, getting closer to the cut down and getting closer to real games, we're definitely going to have that conversation again.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. I know you talked a lot about, the preparation that went into this from a sports science perspective in terms of making sure guys stayed healthy, not just with the virus, but also, injury-wise. So how has the team come through the early part of camp from that perspective, health-wise and everything like that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Matt. Let me give you an update. So out today will be Levi Wallace, Tommy Sweeney, John Feliciano, and Ed Oliver. Ed's nursing a sore hip, and Levi's nursing a sore back. You'll see red jerseys out there today. Isaiah Hodgins and Boshan Joseph both will have red jerseys on. You guys have been around us. You know what that means, no contact. So we've had some, we've had some soft tissue. We've had some bumps and bruises and some things going on, more so than I'd like. I don't have a good gauge on how that compares, honestly, Matt, to the rest of the league. I think some of it is to be expected any year. I do think the not having spring and having the short run-up, obviously, I think does affect us in terms of trying to stay healthy. So we have some injury concerns right now, but we'll just take it one day at a time.
Cool. Thank you, Sean.
Yep.
Hey, Sean, Marcel, ESPN. Hope you're doing well this morning. You've obviously had and been through a lot of football seasons in your career. But with 1 month until that first game, how does 2020 season compare in terms of whatever you're usually feeling this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be real nice to be able to come into work and coach. Someone needs to mute their deal, but it'd be nice to not have to. And I'm sure for you guys, it'd be nice not to have to report with this on. It just adds another layer. But like I said, we got to find a way. You can decide not to wear this and then not coach, right? Or you can coach with it on. So to me, it's a pretty simple decision. So that's really what I think has been different this year. But as I said before on last week's call, that I want to be able to go back and look at this year and say, look, we handled this the right way. And I think for us as a world, as a country, it's time to show how resilient we are, man, and come through this thing the way we can come through. And I've been so impressed with the resiliency of our organization and the people around our building. From a challenge standpoint, it's a huge challenge, right? As we try, and all of us, you guys included, myself, my family, we try and get through this and stay healthy. You wake up every day praying to God that you can stay healthy, but we got to do things the right way. And then, I think how cool this would be 2-3 years from now, whenever it is, we can turn around and say, hey, you know what, man? Yeah, that was a hard time for us as a world, as a country, as a community, but we got through it, and we learned a lot from it.
Yeah, appreciate that, Sean. Sorry about the echo. That's part of this new normal learning process, man. Got the audio playing through the car speaker.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out.
Yes. Good morning, Coach Sean. Good morning. My question, George Redney, Challenger Community News. It seems like you almost caught between a rock and a hard place with tackling. How can you determine, or how you go about determining how much hitting and how much live sessions that you may have? Because obviously you have to go live to get guys ready to kick off the season. And how do you think that's going to look for the regular season too? I know you only can speak for the Bills, but also it looks like it's going to be a little bit tackling is going to be a possible concern around the league as guys are just now getting into that aspect of the game.
Yeah, George, that's real. I mean, you bring up a good point. The fundamental part of the game really doesn't change philosophically for us. In terms of, when you're real little, they work on fundamentals, and I think some people out there take the assumption that tackling and those throws, those catches, the blocking should happen at this level just automatically, and that's not the case. We work on that every day. If you were a fly on the wall in my team meetings, it's talked about just about every day. And so we'll go out there this morning, for example, and we're going to have our whole team tackle, including our offensive line, our offensive players. So, games are won and lost, in particular in the early part of the season, because of fundamentals. And so we are going to go live. We will go live this year. Normally we go live a little bit. This year, we're obviously, with no preseason games, we're going to go live a little bit more. But all the while trying to stay healthy. That's a delicate balance. And look, it's a game of football, so we're going to have some injuries that come up. So, hey, it's the next man up, but we're always going to try and make sure our team is fundamentally strong.
Great. Thanks, Coach.
Yep, thank you.
Hi, Coach. Jenna Cottrell in Rochester. You mentioned earlier the fact that you've had to focus a lot on things off the football field, understandably. Now that you've had, some time, and, your players, they know your expectations of them. The coaches know the standard set. Has that been able to actually give you a little peace of mind now that you've had a couple weeks, or is it still something that, you're worried about constantly?
Yeah, I think it's constant. It doesn't change being a dad. You're always trying to make sure that your children, your kids think, hey, do they have the message? Do they understand what we're all about as a family? What our core values are? And the same thing with our players. It does give me some comfort, though, Jenna, with the amount of guys that we do have back, even though we've added a number of guys and a number of snaps, and that's real. I think seventh most in the league. That we do continue to sell the message of this is what we're about. But it has given me the players have done a really good job. The players that have been Bills for a number of years now have helped connect my message to those new players, and so that's helped, to your point. So again, it's finding that balance, because if you assume that message has been connected and it's not, then that's a fatal flaw. So we've got to make sure that that's connected, and the players have been a big help to this point.